Welcome to Under One Roof MTL, where we are demystifying home ownership one episode at a time. My name is Robin Flynn, joined in studio, as always, by LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. Good afternoon, LJ.
How you doing?
Pretty good. Also joined by Fred Pichette of Fred & Martin Mortgages. Hi, Fred.
Hi, Robin. How are you doing?
Very well. And Martin Spalding, the other half of Fred & Martin Mortgages. Hey, Martin.
Super Bowl Sunday. So I got a question for the gang before we get rolling. Sorry, Robin.
Go.
All right. What is the food item that you'll be serving for the Super Bowl tonight? LJ.
I'm going to my buddy's house, so I will not be doing the serving. I will be doing the consuming.
Nice.
Pretty much the same for me, guys. I'm going to a friend's house and, as usual, chicken wings, pizza, and a few drinks, as always.
Robin.
Go Eagle, go.
I am the one cooking, so we're going to have chili on tap, and I make a killer buffalo chicken dip that is out of this world with tortilla chips, so that's what's on tap for us.
Oh, man, you beat me to it. I'm Mr. Chili. I love chili, and I make enough for the next 6 months.
It's great. You put it in the freezer, freezes well, and then you can just pull it out and defrost it.
Absolutely.
Love it. We'll make our predictions before the hour is up on who we think is gonna win this evening.
We all know who's going to win this. It's very clear who's going to win this.
I don't know.
It's not clear, AJ.
Patriots. Patriots.
Martin, you're
still playing.
you're aging yourself again.
Oh, boy. Let me turn up my Walkman.
Okay, let's get to our trivia question of the week, guys. Brought to you by Felix and Norton Cookies. I've been told that this week's is an easy one, so a bit of a gimme. Speed is your friend here. You want to text in first to 514-790-0800 and include your name if you think you know it. What is the term for a mortgage where interest rates stay the same for the entire term? 514-790-0800. If you are the first person with the correct answer, you will be receiving delicious Felix and Norton cookies delivered straight to your door. Not a bad deal. Guys, lots of stuff in the news this week. Let's start with, I feel like Martin has become our go-to bond market guy. Yeah, so let's start with bond yields plunging to a 3-year low this week, which means I assume that fixed rates are starting to come down.
So I'm going to quote our premier and say uncertainty and or tariffs both are bad for the economy. And it's funny, these days I've been missing Fitzgibbon. I wish Fitzgibbon was still part of our government here in Quebec, because I think Fitzgibbon is the type of character that we could send down to Mar-a-Lago and he could go toe-to-toe with the man. So yeah, you're right. Because of the uncertainty that Trump's threats have been putting on our economy, we saw the 5-year bond yields drop to their lowest level since June 2022. So what has happened is that uncertainty and the fear that there's going to be tariffs, I've seen fixed rates come down. So if we're trying to find a silver lining to tariffs and uncertainty, is that fixed rates are coming down. And we started getting emails this week, Fred and I, from the lenders announcing new rates. So if there is a silver lining and you're a fixed rate type of person, now's a good time to pounce because we're starting to see them in the same neighborhood as we saw them pre-COVID, sorry.
Also, Martin, what I could say is the forecast for the bond yield, it's even lower when you go to June, September, and December 2025, which is probably fixed rate will start going down right now up to potentially 2026.
And if we extrapolate a little bit, we see the Bank of Canada will probably continue to deliver multiple cuts to support the economy. Oh, and LJ's got his hand up, so maybe we're going to get into a debate now.
No, I'm not looking for debate, but I know that our listeners are always very curious, and I know that rate is obviously not the be-all, end-all. We've gone over that several times. Conditions are definitely the more important side of things, but I think people would like a general update as to what you've been seeing. So you mentioned that you've got a couple new rates that came through. What have these rates come through like? What are they looking like for, let's say, a 5-year fixed on a conventional loan, for example?
Well, LJ, conventional loan, this is good for people who wants to refinance their property or they made a purchase with more than 20% down payment. We call that a conventional loan. Rates were in the low four. Let's put it that way. I don't want to just throw a rate out there, but it's in the low four. But on the other end, for the insure mortgage, we see a few lenders going to four, below four point something, which is pretty good. Like it's a good sign.
Yeah, we saw some 399s this week.
Amazing.
Oh, there we go. Martin is
There we go. We saw some
Number-
399s this week. Yeah, there you go.
We're getting close to that sweet spot you spoke about, Martin, last week. I had asked you right now if you were purchasing a property, if you would go with variable or fixed. And you had said you'd probably stick with variable for now until fixed rates came down to the sweet spot, which you estimated to be around 3.5. We're getting close to that.
Yeah, I'd still stick with variable short term, but as the rates come down, if I'm more of a fixed rate type of person, then I would lock in. And locking in it all depends on what you're comfortable with. But the comfort zone is approaching very quickly.
I think Martin and LJ and Robin, this could be debate because a lot of people, they're afraid of a variable rate and others really like a fixed rate because they want to know their monthly payment remains the same. But I think I was reading a few things this week and many economists think that the Bank of Canada will reduce the overnight rate multiple times from now to the end of the year, which is variable. It's pretty good, but also if you're not comfortable with that, fixed rate seems to be good as well.
A lot has happened in the last week because when we convened in studio for the show last week, the Trump tariffs had just been implemented. Canada had just announced the retaliatory tariffs, like I think not even 18 hours prior to when we went on the air. So we were reacting to what the world was going to look like with these tariffs. Well, now the tariffs have been paused for at least 30 days. So we've got a little bit of reprieve, but I am seeing an impact on the economy already. We've already heard from a lot of Quebec businesses who have been laying off staff. So people are still worried. We're not out of the woods just yet. And what's interesting here is I read this report. Goldman Sachs, which is a huge corporation in the U.S., have noticed that global hedge funds are dumping everything into real estate stocks. This seems to be the safest investment right now. And I feel like you guys are sort of hitting yourselves over the head being like, duh, we knew that.
Well, Robin, is real estate is the next safe sector like goal. It seems to be. But again, uh, probably LJ know better than us on this, but real estate, it's a very safe investment. That's for sure.
Brick and mortar, honestly. I mean, I have 95% of my portfolio in there. Obviously, everyone's open to distribute their wealth however they like. But at the end of the day, the real estate's not going anywhere. They're not making any more land available to us, especially in Montreal. We're an island. We're very much limited by what we have in terms of resources in that sense. So investing today into a good real estate property, especially with just the way the market's going, our low vacancy rates, the increased in allowable rental increases that we saw, the rental market's good. The rental market, the home buying, selling market is going to be very attractive this year.
Yeah, it's always a good hedge against inflation because during inflationary periods, so we always see property values and rents typically increase. So I think that the hedge fund managers are seeing that there's so much uncertainty in the market, and we saw the market plunge on Monday after the announcement. And I think that had a factor in why Mr. Trump pulled back a little bit. I don't think there was a huge negotiation from Canada and Mexico on Monday. They're putting it back on border security and the fentanyl. It has nothing to do with border security and fentanyl. It has everything to do with the economy and how he's going to pay for his tax cuts. But when he saw the stock market tumble, his billionaire boys club very called him up and say, "Hey, you just cost me $1 billion in value. Can we do something about it?" And so we know that he tends to be motivated by money. And so when the stock market plunged, well, hedge fund managers say, well, there's a lot of uncertainty. Let's move into something that's a little more certain. And real estate tends to be the way to go.
So if you're investing in real estate right now and you want to take the hassle out of property management, you don't want to worry about managing the properties that you owned, give the Plex Doctor a call, 514-709-6397. You can also visit the website at plexdr.com.
I had lunch with LJ in Thierry on Monday, And I can honestly tell you, I went to a master class. So if you want someone to take care of your property, it's Thierry and LJ.
100%. Still to come, what are the right questions to ask before you apply for a mortgage? We'll find out after we check traffic at the CJD 800 Traffic Center.
What are the right questions to ask before you apply for a mortgage? This is your Mortgage Minute. Before applying for a mortgage, ask key questions about affordability, loan options, and the lender policies. Determine how much can you afford, monthly payment estimates, and the required down payment. Compare fixed versus variable rates, term lengths, and amortization periods. Clarify penalties for early repayment or refinancing, and understand any additional fees. Check the credit score needed for approval and explore pre-approval benefits. Ask about flexibility, such as lump sum payments or payment increases. Understand mortgage insurance requirements, legal fees, and refinancing options. By addressing these questions, you'll be better prepared to select the right mortgage and avoid unexpected financial surprises. And, most importantly, work with a mortgage broker.
You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. I'm Robin, that's Fred, that's Martin, that's LJ, and we are with you until 1 p.m. Applying for a mortgage can be a very, very daunting task. It wasn't that long ago that I was in that seat trying to scramble and come up with all of the documents that I needed, and it can be very overwhelming if you've never done it. So what are the right questions to be asking? Presumably you're working with a mortgage broker or a lender or financial advisor. Somebody is guiding you through this process. So Fred, Martin, you guys deal with first-time homebuyers all the time. What are the right questions to ask?
Well, here's some key questions to ask yourself before applying for a mortgage. I would say the first one, what is my credit score? This has a huge impact on your mortgage. And many people, they don't really know about their credit score. And again, going to Equifax or TransUnit, is it the right choice? Why? A lot of people talk about Credit Karma, Borrowwell, but I think the only two agencies in Canada, it's Equifax and TransUnit. Like, this is the first question I will ask myself. Look at your credit score, check it before applying. And the second one, obviously, how much can I afford to borrow? You know, should I look at a property at 500, 600, 800,000? Or should I look at a condo at 400,000? This is key. How to know about how much you could afford? As you say, Robin, work with a good mortgage broker and see how much you could afford. You know, the GDS and the TDS, I don't want to get too much in detail, but the gross debt service and total debt service is used to assess your affordability. Calculate your debt and your monthly income to find out what you could comfortably afford in terms of mortgages. And the third one, easy one, what is my down payment? You know, the minimum down payment for a purchase is 5% for a condo, single dwelling, or an owner-occupied duplex. Like, these are the questions first before doing anything you should answer. And obviously, there's many other ones, but these are the main ones for me that need to be assessed.
I think you touched on it briefly there, Fred, but without going obviously into the full calculation of a GDS or TDS ratio, I think it's important for people to hear what are the expenses that are being considered in that, right? And I know that it's obviously very common for you. It almost feels like the back of your hand, but I know there's car payments, obviously. There could be other debts, lines of credits. What other things do you see pop up sometimes affecting a TDS ratio negatively that somebody might just not be aware of right now?
Well, most of the time, LJ, it's sadly is the car payment. It play a huge effect in the qualification. A monthly installment like a car payment of $500, $600, $700, $800 affects your affordability. Most of the time I told our clients to listen, if you're planning to buy a car, just wait after you bought your property. After you go to the notary, you don't have to qualify on GDS and TDS. And obviously, if you want to purchase your dream car or whatever car, it's the time. But before the mortgage, I think it's more important to buy a property than the car. That's my honest opinion. There's much more value in a property than in a car.
Or what about student loans?
Well, a student loan, after you finish your study, it turns into a bank as a line of credit, as a small, not a line of credit, but as a very low monthly payment, which is a student loan, do not affect that much your qualification. Let's take an example. You finish your degree at Concordia or McGill, and you have a student loan of $25,000 or $50,000. It's not that bad. Usually it's around between 80 to $200 a month, which is still pretty low. The first thing to pay, I would say, obviously, or not to take, is the car. Wait for the car. Then try to lower your any credit cards balance. It's good. And your student loan, you could leave it there.
So if we look at it in numbers, so your credit score is out of a perfect score of 900. I've never personally seen a 900, but I've seen a lot of 800s. So if you're in the 800 range, more than likely you become a low risk person for a lender. And more than likely, there'll be a little extra taken off your interest rate when you sign up for your mortgage. If you're in the 7 to 800 range, you're in the wheelhouse, no problem, we'll get you qualified. But when you start to get into the 600s, anything above 680, 650, you're okay. But when you start to fall in the 6 to 650, you're not going to go with conventional. More than likely, you end up with a B. Anything under 600, you're in trouble. And more likely, if you really need to get a loan, we'll have to take you to a private. So, Martin, Fred, how do I improve my credit score? Well, that's pretty simple. It's got to be a strategy. So, you got to pay down your debts. You got to avoid late payments. And there's a thing called reducing your credit utilization ratio, which means if your credit limit on your credit card is 10,000 and you're tucked in at 9,500 in utilization, lenders don't like to see that. The credit bureaus don't like to see that, and you will be penalized for it.
So what is the sweet spot in terms of credit to your income, your credit limit? If you are we talking
Well,
50%, 60%? Where should you try to keep that?
technically, Robin, you should be at 30% of your credit limit. If you're, as Martin said, you're at 80 or 90%, you will affect the algorithm of Equifax and TransUnion will affect your credit rating. Obviously, 30%, it's the key. Like if you stay below 30%, your credit will be always good. And obviously, one more thing that Martin didn't say, don't miss any payment. You know, make the minimum payment, but don't miss any payment because this will also affect your credit rating. That's why credit, it's, I would say, one of the factor that affect the most people, and we cannot do much about it. If you came to us and you have a bad credit, we have to wait until you get a good credit. Obviously, we're going to help you out to reestablish your credit, but 30% is, I would say, the maximum you could use.
Start planning ahead, and the best thing you can do is actually get in touch with somebody who can look at your credit report and tell you what you need to work on. You know who has access to credit reports? Fred and Martin. They can help you out, and they can address some of your lending options with you. So you can get in touch with Fred and Martin by going to fredandmartin.com. All of their contact information is there. Coming up next, we're going to continue talking about first-time home buyers, what the buying of a new home process looks like from start to finish. That's coming up after the news. This is Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. My name is Robin Flynn, joined in studio, as always, by Fred Pichette and Martin Spalding of Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. Guys, we went through credit in the last segment before the news. Very important to make sure that you have stable credit at the very least. But the actual process of buying a home, let's assume you've been qualified. You've got a decent credit score. You've got a bit of a down payment saved up. What does the process look like? Now, LJ, I know you walk home buyers through this process all the time.
That's 100% correct. So, once you decide that you're going to be looking for a home and you want to get started in it, the first thing is obviously schedule a meeting. And the reason why we try and hammer this home is because in this meeting, we go over the entire buying process. I walk you through from start to finish what you're going to expect, what it's going to look like, what roadblocks we might have along the way, and how we're going to overcome them. And that really helps set up the game plan and the strategy for our purchasing process to ensure that you know what's going to happen every step of the way and that I can mitigate surprises as much as possible. Whenever you're about to make the largest investment in your life, I promise you the last thing you want is surprises. And if we've taken the time to properly prepare for them, then nothing's really going to surprise us and we're going to be able to handle everything that comes our way. In that meeting, what we typically do is we're going to go over, first of all, what step happens at what time. So we're going to have that initial consultation. I'm going to explain to you how visiting properties works. We're going to build out a search for you. We're going to find out if you're already pre-approved. If not, we're going to connect you with Fred and Martin so that you can get pre-approved. Then we can understand our budget, obviously, make sure that everything that we just discussed has already been reviewed. And then from that point on, I go over what it looks like to draft an offer. What are the conditions that we include in an offer? What are closing costs going to look like? And so on and so forth until the real notary date. So that really, once we start applying our day to day, once we get into the real search, everything just feels familiar. And it's all these steps that we've already gone over. And it's just like checking a box, which makes it so much easier for you to understand, but also live through with a lot less stress. So I'd say that's kind of how we start things off.
What are closing costs? You kind of quickly mentioned it there, and I think people tend to be quite surprised at just how much their closing costs cost.
100%. So closing costs are what I like to call any one-time expense that we have at the time of purchasing a property. Included in there, I'm usually going to have the inspection cost. You're usually looking at, depending on if it's a house, a condo, or a multiplex, somewhere between $600 to $1,500. We're then going to have the notary. Notary is going to take care of obviously the legal side of the transaction. On notary costs, nowadays you're probably looking at about $1,700 to $2,500. After that, we're going to have adjustments. Adjustments are adjustments of prepaid expenses or prepaid revenue. So the most common ones are municipal and school taxes, which are usually paid twice a year at different points in the year. So depending on when we close, we're typically going to reimburse the seller for the taxes that he prepaid. And then revenue would be rental income. So if the property is currently receiving a rental income, let's say we closed on the 10th of the month, the landlord or the owner or the seller collected the rent on the 1st of the month, where he's going to reimburse you the portion from the 10th to the 31st of the month. The notary is going to do the calculation for you and you're going to get that back. And then after that, we're going to have, if you put less than 20% down, we're going to have the tax on the CMHC premium. We can go into that in a later date, but effectively you took an insurance policy when you took that mortgage, and every insurance policy in Quebec has a 9% tax associated to it. So you're going to have that set aside. And finally, we're going to have welcome tax. So land transfer tax or mutation tax is the real name, but it's more commonly known as welcome tax in Quebec. And that is effectively a tax for moving into the neighborhood. And it varies based on the higher of your sale price or your municipal evaluation. And it can be anywhere from, I mean, it really goes by price, but I've seen them as low as, let's say, $6,000 all the way up to $26,000 one that I recently saw. So it really depends on that purchase price, obviously. It kind of follows a luxury segment. As you go into the higher brackets, it's a higher tax effectively. So those are the most common closing costs that we're going to see.
So, LJ, is it fair to say that you should budget anywhere between 1.5 and say 3% of the purchase price for your closing costs?
I'd honestly say 2% to be safe. I think 2%
Okay.
typically covers you. Obviously, if we get into the $2 million plus price range, then yes, we might be seeing close to that 3% with the welcome tax. But in general, 2% should cover your expenses.
Okay.
Is there anything else people should be considering for their monthly payments? Because one common complaint that I see on TikTok from young, hopeful homeowners is, my rent is $2,500 a month, but the bank says I only qualify for $1,800 a month payment. How is this possible when I can clearly pay $2,500? But there's a lot of added costs to being a homeowner, right?
100%. So whenever we break down a budget for somebody, I say, okay, so we're going to have the monthly mortgage. That part might look okay, and we were expecting that. After that, you're going to have an insurance policy to consider, depending on the type of property. That number can vary from $50 a month to maybe $250 a month, obviously. After that, you're going to have, if it's in a condo fees that you're going to have to pay for. If you're in a house or a multiplex, you're probably going to want to budget for some maintenance, whether that's snow removal, landscaping costs, or just general capital expenditures. You need to put some money aside for your roof, for your bricks, for your windows, etc. And then after that, you're going to have your utility bills. Some rentals include heating, electricity, Wi-Fi. That's not going to be the case in any property you're going to buy. So these are the things you want to be budgeting for, additional from the monthly payment.
So often, what we say, just because you qualify for it, don't spend it all. because you don't want to get into your first home and realize, oh my God, I need to buy a lawnmower now. I need to buy a snowblower. I never needed to buy those things when I was in a rental apartment or a condo. So, what we advise people is to be wise and borrow a little bit less and use sort of a benchmark about 30 to 35% of your net income because there is so much stuff, especially for first time home buyers, that you're constantly. And I was being teased because I was talking about Bed Bath and Beyond, which doesn't exist anymore. But Bed Bath and Beyond and places like Home Depot, you're there on a weekly, daily basis buying stuff for your house. And if you're a house poor, and you don't have anything left because you spent it all on your house, you're going to be live in a big empty house, sitting on the floor and eating out of Chinette plates with plastic forks.
And you know what I didn't budget for when we first bought our house was snow removal. I hadn't thought
I
about.
see.
I have a driveway now. So that first year, my husband and I were shoveling for the whole winter and cleaning off the car. So after we survived that winter, I said, we're getting snow removal and we are getting a tempo. So those
Hey,
were
Robin, truth
expenses.
be told, that's why you have a husband. He should be out there shoveling and clearing the car.
Hey, 50-50, baby. We do everything together.
Like so modern. So I'm showing my
Modern.
age again. Don't say it, LJ. I'm showing my age again. Chivalry's not dead in my house.
Is there anything else that people should be considering before they go into the first time home buying process? Fred, is there anything that comes to mind, in terms of the kinds of questions that you are hearing from first time home buyers?
Well, most of the time, it's exactly what LJ says. That people pay the rent 2,500, and then how come I could qualify only for a mortgage of 1,500 a month? One of the reason is we have to do the stress test. We still have to do the stress test on any purchases. What that means, the stress test? Stress test is you need to qualify on the 5 years mortgage rate plus a 2% uh, increase, which is it lower your affordability. Now, since I think it's a month ago, 2 months ago, we could qualify on 30 years amortization period, which is help people to qualify for a little more. Now, what I hear most of the time, people are, how come I'm going to pay my mortgage on 30 years? It's going to cost me too much. Well, it's just 30 years. It's just an amortization period to give you the chance to qualify for a higher property, value. Down the road, after your 5 years term, if everything goes well, nothing stop you to pay extra payment towards the principal of your loan to reduce the lifetime of your mortgage and to, in the meantime, to reduce the interest that you pay on your mortgage. Don't forget, you cannot compare a rental property and a property where you live in it. A rental property, most of the time, you could write off the interest on your mortgage, which is on your primary residence. You can, unless if you're self-employed, you could declare probably a small portion of it. But again, people are sometimes a bit, discouraged because they qualify only for 400. But I think it's you have to start somewhere, especially for the first-time home buyers. I encourage them to buy their first property as soon as possible. Why? You're going to create wealth. If you don't do it, you're going to keep paying rent. And, I don't think it's the right option, like,
If you're not sure if now is the right time to buy your first home, you know what you should do? You should give LJ a call. He loves hearing from people. 514-500-4040. He'll help you decide and help you figure out what the right move is right now. Coming up, our property of the week plus the answer to our trivia question. What is the term for a mortgage where interest rates stay the same for the entire term? We'll find out after we check traffic at the CJD 800 Traffic Center. This is Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. I'm Robin, that's Fred, that's Martin, that is LJ. We are with you until 1 p.m. We will have our Super Bowl predictions for you in just a couple of minutes. But first, our property of the week. LJ, what do you got for us?
I have a rare gem in Point St. Charles. Welcome to 668 Rue de Liverpool, a beautifully updated 2-bedroom, 1.5-bathroom home, transformed from a duplex into a stylish single-family residence. Enjoy a spacious living area, a sleek modern kitchen, and sliding doors leading to your private backyard, perfect for relaxing or entertaining. Upstairs, you'll find 2 generous bedrooms, including one with balcony access, plus a large bathroom with a separate tub. This home also features private parking with an EV charger hookup. a true rarity in this sought-after neighborhood. Located just steps away from parks, schools, cafes, and Charlevoix Metro, you're minutes from downtown and the best in Montreal. We're listed at $849,000. Don't miss out on this opportunity. In terms of my favorite restaurant, I'm probably going to have to lean into Clark Cafe for some of the best sandwiches in the city. If you haven't checked them out, be sure to do so. Make sure you grab a Nutella horn, a nice little coffee on the way out as well. It will be well worth your while.
Clark Cafe, where is that?
They moved, actually. They're on the corner of Shearer and Center Street now.
Because I used to live in the Point. I've never heard of it before.
You lived in the Point in 1 year?
Oh, don't start.
I believe Clark opened up about 6 years ago.
Well, I used to tell you, I used to ride around in horse and buggy. That's what I was there.
Oh boy. Okay, our very easy trivia question of the week brought to you by Felix and Norton Cookies. What is the term for a mortgage where interest rates stay the same for the entire term? The answer is a fixed rate mortgage. And if you've been listening to the show, you heard that bond yield markets are down, which means fixed rates are starting to come down a little bit, which is one of the things that we learned this week. We also learned that real estate is one of the safest investments that you can make, especially if it's your primary residence. Ooh, when you sell that, no capital gains tax.
Look at Robin. Look at Robin. Oh, she's settling in. I tell you.
I think you could do the show by yourself, Robin, though.
Exactly. We're out of here.
Oh, I need you guys desperately because you teach me things. And when my mortgage comes up for renewal, I know exactly who I am going to. Also, we learned that you should never be shy to book a consultation. I think a lot of people are afraid of wasting other people's time. I don't know if I'm ready to buy a house. I don't think I have enough saved up for my down payment. My credit's not the greatest. Talk to the experts because they're the ones who can help you come up with a plan. So don't be shy to book a consultation with Fred, Martin, or LJ. If you're thinking about buying your first home and aren't sure if you're ready, they'll help you figure it out. And even if you aren't ready, they're going to help you put a plan in place to make your home ownership dreams come true, because that's what mortgage brokers and real estate brokers do. They help
Yeah, but
make
ask
dreams
those
come true.
questions. Educate yourself. I mean, we were just talking about it off air that, don't talk to someone who bought a house 40 years ago because you're comparing, and I won't mention what LJ said, but you're comparing apples to oranges. But talk to a guy like LJ who is constantly doing transactions in real estate. So he knows the ins and outs currently. It's good to talk to dad or talk to mom because they've all bought houses, or you've talked to the three of us because we've all purchased houses. But a guy like LJ is living it on a day-to-day basis and he knows what's going on currently.
That's pretty much it for us for this week. We will still get to our Super Bowl predictions. Stand by. But I want to mention we will be back next Sunday at 12 p.m. right here on CJAD 800. In the meantime, we have a website. You can go check it out, underoneroofmtl.com. You can also get in touch with LJ, Fred, and Martin individually. LJ, where do people go to reach you?
You can check out our website, ljrealties.com, or on all socials with the handle LJ Aguinaga. That's LJAGUINAGA, or LJ Realties. You can also call or text me at 514-500-4040, or if you want to book a meeting directly with me, you can go to meetwithlj.com.
Oh, that's so easy. I love that. Good for you. You also have the Plex Doctor as well for property management. So plexdr.com is the website for that.
100%. Right now it's RL31 time. Those are due by the end of the month. So if you do own some rental properties, make sure you get those ready. It's also a good time to start preparing your rental renewals because you're allowed to send those out 3 to 6 months prior to lease end. We always like to send those out 5 months before lease end because that way we have a minimum of 4 months to find a new tenant for the property, seeing as the tenants have 30 days to get back to us. So that's my pro tip for managing a rental property for today.
Fred, Martin, where do people go to get in touch with you guys?
And let me just build on what LJ just said. If we're working on obtaining a mortgage for a Plex, we will need those renewals. We will need not only the leases, but we'll also need the renewals. So get your renewal notices out now. For Fred and I, it's fredandmartin.com. And the beauty of the website, our phone numbers, our email addresses, you can book us through a virtual calendar, and you can even fill out our online application. So that's fredandmartin.com. fredandmartin.com, fredandmartin.com.
Fantastic. All right, it's time for our Super Bowl predictions. So we're going to go around the table and find out next week who was right and who was wrong. Who do you have, LJ? Eagles or Chiefs?
We're going for the 3-peat, baby.
Ooh.
Fred, what do you think?
Well, I'm going for the Eagles. They've been there last year, and now I think it's their time. I would say 34-30 Eagles.
Ooh, Martin?
Tampa Bay. What?
At least he followed Brady for that long.
No. Mahoney's. Kansas City.
Chiefs.
Kansas City.
I am also choosing the Chiefs as a diehard Swiftie. I will never bet against Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce. I am expecting it to be a close game. Wouldn't be surprised if this one goes to overtime and is decided on one score, one call, one play. And I'm very excited to see what Taylor's wearing and which rings she brings.
And by the way, Bradley Cooper is going down with the Phillies.
And what about the halftime show? Kendrick's.
Halftime show, Kendrick Lamar. He's had a big week, won 4 Grammys last week, including Album of the Year. Oh, I'm curious to see if he's going to wear another Canadian tuxedo to diss Drake.
I was going to say, is he going to diss Drake or not?
He'll find a way. He wore a Canadian tuxedo to the Grammys. That's the ultimate diss move. That does it for us. If you missed anything, you can listen to the show in its entirety on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. For LJ, Fred, and Martin, I'm Robin. Have a great Sunday. Go Chiefs!